trillions of dollars to the debt and to the deficit over the course of a couple of years. And so that supercharged inflation. One analysis showed
EJ,
that she is responsible
let's
for
hold it
half
there.
of
We
all
got
the inflation since 2020.
What are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, but a lot of people will relate to this. I grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn, and I was raised to believe and to know that all people deserve dignity.
Unbelievable. That was one of the most disastrous political interviews. And I'm not saying this because I'm a conservative that I've ever seen. And I think that's what Brenda was talking about. She always evades the question. E.J. Antoni, economist for the Heritage Foundation. Kamala Harris, I think, just gave us her economic plan, except she didn't give us an economic plan. She was asked how she would bring prices down. And that was her answer. She grew up in a middle-class neighborhood. Her mother had to save to buy a home. The people were very concerned about their lawns. I'm not sure that I heard how she can bring prices down, even if she should, quite frankly, being someone that's running for the presidency. Your take, E.J. Antoni? I don't hear him.
How fast were you going? I'm going to tell them, oh, well, officer, I was raised in a middle-class family and our lawns were green. So, so there. I mean, what an absolute bunch of nonsense. Every time this woman opens her mouth, it's yet another non-answer. It is just so beyond ridiculous. And Carl, at this point, the only conclusion I think we can come to is simply the fact that she doesn't have any policies. And I think that's further evidenced by the fact that shortly after former President Trump said he wants to eliminate tax on tipped income, all of a sudden she adopted that as part of her campaign as well. And previous, or I should say policies that she previously endorsed, she is now all of a sudden walking back. So again, she just seems like an empty vessel into which her handlers are pouring whatever the hot topic of the day seems to be.
Is there, in your opinion, EJ, and I got several more questions that I want to ask you, is there a way in which Trump should be, when it comes to the economy? Are there things, in your opinion, that he should be saying, ways that he should be attacking her plan, non-existent plan, or things that you would like to hear him say more on the trail, on the campaign trail?
I think that he should address it similar to the way in which we talk about Janet Yellen and Jerome Powell when they talk about the economy. The Fed is cutting interest rates and saying the economy is fine, except that they're making a large interest rate cut, which is reserved for when the economy is not doing fine. Janet Yellen just went out the other day and talked about how, we have all of these illegal immigrants throughout the economy. And if we tried deporting them, it would do a massive amount of economic harm. I'm sorry, this is the woman who has spent the last 3.5 years telling us that there's really not that many illegals here and they're not affecting the labor market. They're not taking jobs from Americans. I'm sorry, guys, you can't have it both ways. And so the way that then President Trump can address Kamala Harris here is to simply say, you can't tell us that you've done a great job for the last 4 years, but then simultaneously tell us, hey, you need to send me back to Washington so I can fix everything that's wrong with the economy in another 4 years. I'm sorry, is the economy fundamentally broken, or has it been doing just fine under your leadership? Which one is it? They can't both be true. And on top of that, you can just go back to the original Reagan line, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And I think the answer there is clearly no. And again, evidence of that answer is found in Harris's non-answers. When she is asked precisely that question and she refuses to answer it, she instead dances around it by talking about her middle-class upbringing or the fact that she's a black woman or whatever the case may be. She always brings up something that's a complete non sequitur.
Okay, so I'm speaking with E.J. Antoni, economist for the Heritage Foundation. Find him online on X at Real E.J. Antoni, and he's actually really good on X as well. I love checking out your X page. All right, so there's a few more things that I'd like to talk about, get your take on it. For one, the Teamsters Union declines to endorse a candidate the first time since 1996. In your opinion, is this indicative of the Teamsters Union? I mean, what are they saying here? What should we take from this? Obviously, they're not confident in Kamala Harris if they've been voting for Democrats basically ever since George H.W. Bush.
Right. And Carl, I think the other thing that's important to acknowledge here is the fact that the Teamsters, like many unions, frankly, are a case where the leadership, the so-called leadership at the top of the organization, is not actually representing the best interest of its members. And we can see that by the fact that President Trump is actually quite popular among a lot of these unions, whether it's the Teamsters, whether it's auto workers, whatever the case may be. We find this also in a lot of mining and oil and gas extraction jobs that are unionized as well, where former President Trump is actually wildly popular among a lot of these folks, except the union leadership hate him because they're beholden to Democrats. And so because right now I think that those union leaders are essentially facing a kind of revolt among their membership, they can't come out and endorse Kamala Harris today.
Yeah, that's so. I mean, it's so fascinating. I mean, these are the guys. I was listening to a union truck driver on Fox News. I can't recall which show. But I mean, basically, I'm like, this is a guy that's on the ground. This is a trucker. He understands what's happening with the economy. He's seeing this stuff firsthand. And if they want to endorse Trump over Kamala Harris, obviously they saw something during the Trump administration that they're not seeing in this current administration. We only have 30 seconds left in this block. I'm speaking to E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation. Check him out on X. He's going to join us just for one more block to close it up on this hour. E.J., when we get back, if you want to be thinking about this, census data shows Americans haven't gotten a pay raise since Trump was president. I think that aligns with the union story. And then also the government shutdown. Should we not? More with E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation. When we get back, I'm Carl Jackson in for the great Eldersky. All right, welcome back to the program. I'm your guest host, Carl Jackson, sitting in, joined by my guest, E.J. Antoni of the Heritage Foundation. I'm just taking a look at his latest column, For America's Military, A Death by 1,000 Drones. Honestly, EJ, Zach just sent this to me. I'm just looking at some of the key takeaways. And good Lord, I'm going to have you back on when I'm back in to talk about this. This is, wow, these are some really great points. Really great points. Check them out at the Heritage Foundation, Daily Signal, For America's Military, A Death by 1,000 Drones. Very good title as well. Okay, so EJ, now let me, just a couple of minutes left. Just your, a couple of points still. Trump calls for a government shutdown. Also, there's census data revealing that Americans haven't gotten a pay raise since Trump was president. I feel that's a duh moment, but take on both of those, if you will. Government shutdown. I hate calling it that. And also, Americans not getting a pay raise since Trump.
Yeah, Carl, we should be clear as far as the government shutdown is concerned. The government has plenty of money that has already been allocated to pay for the absolute necessities in order to continue financing the debt. So paying outstanding Treasury bills, bonds, and notes. They have money to continue sending out Social Security checks, for example. We're still going to be able to fund a lot of these government projects and infrastructure on which so many millions of Americans rely. It's just a matter of all of the bloated discretionary spending is going to have to temporarily stop. Oh no, cry me a river. I mean, it's absolute nonsense that the bureaucrats here in DC think that they can essentially continue to just live on the taxpayer dime forever and never have to even do so much as to create a budget like every single American household wants to do or has to do if they want to stay solvent. I mean, it's just absolutely appalling the complete and total lack of any kind of fiscal discipline here in Washington, D.C.
You know, and the great news, too, EJ, is that Kamala Harris has promised that if she becomes president, you'll no longer need a degree to become a federal government employee. So we have that to look forward to, too. All right, we have less than a minute left. Americans are not making as much money under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Sounds like a duh moment to me, but your take.
Oh, absolutely, Carl. You're 100% right here. Again, every American knows that they are worse off today than they were 4 years ago, simply because prices have risen so much faster than their incomes. Yes, it's true that the average American's paycheck is larger today than it was 4 years ago, but prices are up even more. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics confirms that. Now this data you're talking about from the Census Bureau also confirms it. And it's only the elites here in D.C. who are so removed from the average American who actually need these reports to realize what's going on, because the average American lives it every single day.
All right. EJ Antoni from the Heritage Foundation, great economist. Check him out online at Real EJ Antoni on X. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate your time.
All right, guys, don't forget, subscribe to the podcast wherever you go to get your podcast, Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and Rumble, and subscribe to The Carl Jackson Show. Until next time, don't grow weary doing good. God bless you.